Hi, this is Roger. Thanks for dropping by. Welcome to my Sunday Orchid chat, regular feature of the channel. In today's video we'll have some updates on life, the universe and things. My life, the universe and things. Well, I don't know yours, do I? We'll have some plans for the week ahead. We'll have our usual Sunday thank yous to subscribers and ways to support the channel. We've got some new blooms to look at. Only a couple, but some is better than none, as I always say. And I just thought I'd have a general look round the way the plants are set up at the moment, which is subject to change, but I've watered them since I've been here. I should be watering today, but I decided I'm going to have a lazy day, hence no shave. And I thought we'd just have a look round at the way the shelves are set up and why I think it's okay to not rush to actually change things. And yeah, without further ado, let's get going. Okay, news and stuff then. I've finally got the Orchid Society's magazine finished, done and issued to everybody. That's been sitting on my shelf for a very long time, but it just didn't come up as a high priority. That's now done. It's so late that I'm already thinking about starting the next one. Our next edition follows our spring show, which is at the end of February. And talking of shows, the two society meetings in January have already been switched to Zoom, with thoughts about the possibility of one society changing February's as well. And that society have got their show second Saturday in March, thinking ahead. The first society show is at the end of February. Now, the way this virus is going at the moment, they'll have to have a good think. Now, that's the show committee's job, not mine. But thoughts may be passed out from the show committee to the rest of the committee, which I may be wings to. But yeah, it's difficult to plan ahead. The problem we've got is that we've got our own thoughts. You've got government rules and regulations. You hear them on the news, get bored with that, don't you? But you've got your own common sense to apply as well. And the fact that this virus is rampant and spreading like wildfire, and also catching people out that have even had their booster jabs, they're still getting it. Okay, it's mild, but they're still getting it and having to stay away from other people. So thoughts ahead to, it's only 6-7 weeks till that show. How much is going to change in that time? Will people feel comfortable coming into a hall as a closed space or enclosed space? Okay, keep your mask on, do the sensible things. If you use the facilities, do your hands. We can do all of that. So it's just a matter of what people think. And I've also got a coach trip now, which is semi-booked. I've got the quote from the coach company and I've got the authorisation from the RHS to take a coach load of orchid loonies to RHS Wisley for the Orchid show and spring fair, which is normally held in the centre of London, and we do not like doing that. We don't like taking a coach into the centre of London. You spend half your time sitting in traffic, instead of being at an orchid show, whereas Wisley is easily accessible from here. So but again, that's the end of March. Okay, that seems a fair way away, but time will travel quickly. Are people going to want to sit in a coach, which is a confined space? You could liken it to public transport, for instance. There's still people avoiding that. So yeah, this thing's still having a go at us. It's still making us think ahead and change plans, and it may continue to do so for ever. I don't know. Anyway, so yeah, there's sort of a bit of news about Orchid Society stuff and plans. The other thing obviously is sorting out selling the old house, which is progressing well. My two sisters are doing a wonderful job clearing the rest of the stuff out of the house. There's still plenty there when I went back yesterday. I had to drop a form off that needs a physical signature from the four of us, the four executors. It's a legal document, so it's got to be signed and sent off as an original. It's to do with the sale, contract of sale. So that's underway, although one of the four of us has now got COVID. So, you know, it's there, it's under your nose, whether you like it or not. So my sister that normally does all the taking the forms round has now said, well, I'm not going to get that signature, that can wait. And I said, so be it can wait. It's not a big deal. Your own personal safety is far more important than getting that done at speed. We'll do it at the speed we can do it at. The other thing we've still got outstanding on that thing is the failure on the online probate application system. The basic application system sent an email to all four of us with a link. Three of us used the link, which is access to a legal document which you have to agree to online. It's like a signature, but an online version. The fourth one of us, the link's broken. It just comes up with 404, page not found. Standard, standard. You've moved the page, or this link's out of date, or something's gone wrong, and I've still got to get an answer from them. I've phoned them twice and sent two emails, one to the customer support and one as a direct reply, and I've had no response from any of them. So there's still that to do, but you know, the house will be progressing in the background, so that's going along. So that's all that stuff. Right, I think that'll do. As usual on Sunday, we do the thank you to people that have subscribed, and those of you that are watching that are thinking of subscribing, go on, do it. do it. Don't cost you anything. And new subscribers help the channel grow. That's all it's for. It's just those numbers are something that YouTube looks at. In addition to that, there've been a few people buying me a coffee, or in some cases quite a few coffees. Thanks for your support. It all adds into what at the moment is quite a phenomenal expense on my part, because I'm actually paying the bills on two properties at the moment, which is a bit of a drag, but so be it. And also the thanks to the patrons for hanging in there. You will start getting a few goodies now and again. Now that I've got out from, I've actually moved house and I'm sort of settling in and everything, so thanks for that. And anybody who buys any of the merchandise, again, another way of supporting the channel. And the simplest way to support the channel is to watch the ads. That's the YouTube financial side of things that YouTube provide. And even though YouTube keep a sizable chunk, nonetheless they let me have some of it. Obviously the advertisers pay to get those words of wisdom under your nose, which, as I said, a short ad watched pays YouTube some money and the creator gets some money as well. So do what you can with watching the ads. It's something you can do that merely uses some of your time, which I know to a lot of people is precious, but do what you can. It all helps out. Right, so that's the news and views and thank yous. Now let's move on to something else. Right, I've got a couple of new blooms to show you. They're, well, one's a brand new bloom on a plant that is unknown. The idea was waiting for the blooms. The other one's a repeat bloomer, which I'll show you first. This one has been growing these spikes for some considerable time, but we finally got it open. Now this is, it's an Aliciara and it's Tahitian Dancer. I've had this one a while. It's, as a plant, doing very well now. We've got a lot of roots. We're okay with the roots, and the latest growths, both of them, both pushed up a single spike. But these are very attractive blooms, if I can get them to stay still, wobbling around all over the place. They are typical of this type of intergeneric. You can see Miltonia there, sticking out like a sore thumb. Just the outline shape more than anything. So there's a reasonable amount of Miltonia in there, I'm relatively certain. Although quite honestly it's a guess, just going by the outline shape. Probably some Oncidium in there as well, and bits and bobs of various things that have probably had their name changed a dozen times since this video started, he said, having another go. Anyway, very attractive blooms. We've got a second spike coming up here with a few more to follow. They don't last an awful long time, but this is a typical Oncidium intergeneric in that by the time these blooms start to fade, there will probably be signs of the next growth starting at the base of the latest two pseudobulbs, which is their normal pattern. And although this is quite tightly potted, the fact that the two new growths both came out together, one's in the centre of the pot and one's here near the edge. So they can stay in the pot. The next two growths are going to have a place to be, and their roots will go down into the pot. This is only a very, very slight climber. Tiny little bit. The bulb is slightly higher than it was before, but not a major big deal. Not trying to climb out the top of the pot as some of them do. So that's new bloom number one. Very attractive. I'll put that back in the on the blooming table, facing the house this time rather than facing the window. And the second new bloom may enable us to identify the plant. Now this came from Jeff's, and it was put with the Twinkles on the grounds that initially it did look a bit like a twinkle. But then the spikes came, and as the spikes progressed I could see that it wasn't the twinkle. Yeah? Simply because of the two-tone buds and the fact that they were slightly rounded. They were just a different shape, plus it seemed to branch differently. Now I will have trouble holding this still, but I need to. All you clever clogs out there can now have a go at positively identifying this. Coming from Jeff's, it is highly likely to be an Oncidium true species, which actually cuts it down, quite honestly. If it's a hybrid, then the number of options would go on forever. You know, the list would fall off the bottom of the page. But anyway, let's see how close I can get. See if I can force a focus on it. I'm going to have a hell of a job keeping it still. Right. Let me hold the plant with two hands, see if I can keep it still. The worst comes to the worst, and when I actually process this, it's not in focus. I'll actually take a still and pop that up. But that's the first bloom that's opened. As I said, it's a species Oncidium of some sort. Lynn may throw some light on that, but possibly. Several people are capable of it. It's a matter of who's watching, really. But anyway, I think it's going to be quite a nice display with two good spikes on it. So that's that. And then all the other Twinkles are out bar one, which we're still waiting for. So actually, I'm not sure whether I've shown this one before. This is the named hybrid, so it's strictly speaking not a true Twinkle. It's a Twinkle crossed back with Sotoanum, and it's Siku Marguerite, and it's the variety, or the named clone, Chiansi Glory. Slightly larger blooms than your standard Twinkle, and if you look at the coloration, it's got Sotoanum written all over it. So obviously crossing it back to one of the parents of the Twinkle puts double the dose of Sotoanum in it, which obviously means it's going to be dominant, and being a strong species anyway and used in an awful lot of hybridizations. Not necessarily for the colour or even for the shape or size of the blooms. It's put in often mainly to get that fragrance across. And that's one thing I'm missing out on here. With the lack of sun, the sudden burst of sunshine through the glass in the other grow room used to give me a burst of fragrance. I don't get that anymore, which is a shame. So we have to get our nose right in there from now on. But I mean, I know that all the Twinkles are fragrant anyway. They do vary, they're not all the same, but they do have that fragrance. And then the other ones, the other Twinkles, at least we can now identify them. All I've got to do is remember to get the tags on them now. Or the fact that I've now got a recent video of them which shows the shape of the plant on the mount and the type in a single shot. Do I really need the tags? Maybe not. But anyway, that's the cinnamon one, and that does have a more, it's heading towards a chocolatey fragrance, that one. Not today, it's not. We've got a dull day here today. So that's that one. Then we've got this one, which is another named Twinkle. This is Red Fantasy. It's not red. It's a deep pinkish colour, but it has a deep red centre in the centre of the flower, so there is an element of red in there, as opposed to most of the others where it's yellow or even white. But it's got a red centre. But Red Fantasy, that one. Plant didn't do too well, but we got 2 spikes out of 2 of the new growths. The third one didn't spike this time round. And then we've got my tiny Twinkle, that's its name rather than its size. And not as many spikes this year on the new growths. The new growths didn't fulfil their maturity like they often do. There's a reason for that. I think the moss is going off, and underneath the moss we might have trouble with the mount. So this one's coming off once we get into a secondary burst of new growths and roots. But Tiny Twinkle is a very attractive plant. They're quite dense blooms on this one, and you'd have to say they're not white, they're not yellow, they're a creamy colour, but it is a very nice colour, and nowhere near as many spikes this year. We've got 4. There might be another odd spike lurking on some of the growths that are a bit behind, so we might get another 1 or 2, but I don't think so. This is the place where I've noticed the problem, along the top here. Now, I've always had a nice set of new growths along the top of the mount, and yes, I've got a nice set of new growths, but some of them haven't matured. They've remained small and stopped growing. So there's something always, if the plant changes its growth habit, the problem will be the bit you can't see, the bit below ground, or in this case buried in that moss. And I think it's just been on that mount too long. It needs coming off, roots going into something fresh. So that's that. Nothing else new. Nope, nothing else new. Coming soon, we've got a Dendrobium phalaenopsis type. We've got zygos in bud, and we've also got my Laelia anceps in bud. Yeah, so some things to come. Right, now I thought we'd have a look round some of the shelves. So let's move on to that next, when I finish my coffee. So on this stand here we've got the things that are in bloom that are in pots, and this is the best display area for me to be able to get a good view from my workstation inside the house through the doors. We've seen what's in bloom here, but one thing that's very interesting is things change colour without you noticing over time. Look at the difference in the colour there between the new blooms that have just opened on that spike and the colour of those that have been open some time and in fact are just starting to go. Really bright yellow on the new blooms. Quite different. The Thailand black phalaenopsis type, the blooms have not lasted very well at all, but it's not a very good plant. It's struggling a bit. But one of the buds blasted, one of them I knocked and broke, and that leaves one out of 3. This one's now in full flood, both spikes fully open. We've got a meeting on Wednesday, which if it transgresses, it's a Zoom meeting, if it transgresses into people holding up plants in front of the screen, I think I'll come and get this one and bring it out. It's just such a nice colour. But so these Zoom presentations are not going to be so easy for me now because the light's the wrong way round. But we shall see. This one is very, very slow to open. It's still only got its second bloom open, and this one's been open a long time. And it's just opened its first one on the second spike. So second spike coming on. Tahitian Dancer we've just looked at. The Wildcat Bobcat is going to go soon. There are signs of blooms going. But nonetheless, it's been a good spike, and it was deemed by others, not by me, but it does make sense, that the gap in the spike was probably a dry period when it was hot, and I didn't keep up with the watering, because it's branched all the way up the spike to here, and then nothing, and then some more blooms. So there should have been something on that node and that node, either a branch or a bloom, and there's a gap where it didn't develop. So probably down to me. And then down under that shelf, these are all Derek's plants, apart from two. There are two plants that are not with these because they don't go with these. These are all Odontodias, Odontoglossums, and that type of thing. So they're all cooler growers. But in amongst Derek's plants, there was a Coelogene and there was a radiata. Is that Encyclia radiata? I think so. And those two I keep separate, and they get watered differently. These have got watered yesterday. They haven't been watered for a month. They're not really growing at the moment, so I'm not keeping them soggy. Most of them have got virtually no roots. So that's that little shelf there. Up here are all my Cattleya types. The ones that haven't been thrown away, some of which aren't looking too bad, but every single one of these needs to get some decent roots going in this growing season. They're up on the tallest shelf. This is my tallest shelf, so they're closest to the roof, and the Laelia anceps spike is almost touching the roof, but I have got my eye on it. It's about 3 inches from the roof. I don't think it's going to grow another 3 inches, but it could put on a spurt of height as the buds form and start to open, so I've got my eye on it. And then below that, one of my pinguiculars, that's one that needs splitting. And this is an assortment of Oncidium types. There's my two big Sharry babies over here. They're going mad with roots, so I can't get them out. But they're doing a lot of roots down in there. Both plants are pushing out a good root system. And a zygo, one of the zygos. And then coming over here, we've got more zygos. Top shelf for these. I'm giving them more light than what it says in the ancient scrolls. And this looks like an Oncidium, but it's not. It's a... I can never say this thing. Anachelium, whatever that is. It's probably something that's been renamed that used to be something that you've heard of, and now it's something that you haven't probably. But anyway, that's on a high shelf as well. Then below that, that's all of my Miltoniopsis there, my species, my primary cross and my hybrids. Some of which aren't doing too bad, some are hanging on, and some are not doing well at all. And then over here we've got some biggies. These are mainly my large Miltonias. So there's Red Schnellii up there, and then there's the Spectabile and the Morelliana cross. They're not the true species actually. So that's that shelf. Down here we've got mostly Latoria types, or that along those lines. A bit less light, and also the way the heater and the circulating fan work, they're probably in the line of a little bit more heat than quite a few of the other shelves. That was planned. And then down in under here, I'm not quite sure what that is. It's just some odd plants down here. I'm not quite sure why they got put there. There was obviously something there that's been moved. My Cymbidiums down there, we're not going to get any blooms this winter. So for the first year, last year, this was kept in the grow room and not put outside in the garden. Consequences, no bloom. And not a very big bulb, and only one. And it's pushing on its latest growth now, and I think the The trouble is if it goes out in the garden, it comes in with wildlife and that gets onto other plants and can cause damage. So, and I'm not that fussed on Cymbidium, so I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do with that at the moment. It might go outside, it might just go. Who knows? Right, I'm not going to move the racks because they're sensitive to movement. I have to go very careful. I need 2 hands and one of them's holding the camera. So this is my Dendrobium shelf. This is Nobiles, Phalaenopsis type, black hair types, and my antelope one, which is easily spotted because it's nearly touching the roof, the latest cane. And right next to it, let me zoom in, I don't use my zoom anywhere near enough. That's the Phalaenopsis type from Jeff's, and this will be its first blooming. And it looks like it's not going to be bad. That looks like 4, maybe 5 good sized blooms coming on there. They are taking a while, and it was quite possible that those could have blasted with the move, you know, several different environments in quick succession, but I don't think they have. I think they are going to open. So that's the top shelf there. And then down here, what have we got? That's a Brassia, my Roseoglossum, and something else, another Oncidium type. So, and another one up there. Look how loosely packed these shelves are. That shelf over there, quite a bright shelf, but it's a short shelf. Yeah, I can only get smaller plants on it. But that's a bright shelf, and it's only got 1 plant at the moment. That needs dealing with, and I need more plants on that shelf, but they can only be short ones. And the same here. These tall ones can only go on this part of the shelf. They can't go up the back there, which is the brighter part, because of the height. So some sorting out to do here. I'm happy with the top shelf at the moment, but some sorting out to do there. The racks we've looked at recently, and then over here, the bit we don't look at very often, because the camera never points this way for a start. This is a mix. The top shelf is a mix, it really is. The radiators up the back that you heard me mention, that's Derek's. My Masdevallias are here. Mr. Harry's on the corner here. He's been put there because I want medium to bright light, and I want to keep my eye on it so that it doesn't completely dry out. That's why it's on the corner there. So every time I come in here, I get to look at it. And then a few odds and sods, basically. My other Pinguicula that needs splitting. Mostly Oncidium types or Odontoglossums. There's an Encyclia up the back there as well. There's the radiata, that Lancifolia, that came from Jeff's as well, yet to bloom. And then the next shelf down, again, is a bit of a mixture, and this hasn't really been sorted out yet. There's my Pabstia. Oh, sorry, no, that's my Vasa vixella timbiense. That's still yet to bloom, but it hasn't died yet, which is, I was expecting it to. This plant that came, Zena gave me that, I've never even heard of it. There's a restrepia up there and another restrepia here. And then down here are my bigger restrepias. Again, you know, towards the front of this shelf, that's quite good. That's much brighter light than they had in the other grow room. Yeah, and then obviously down below we've got the moss trays. That actually belongs to Lynn, and every chance I get to take that moss to Lynn. One time I forgot, the next time was the Christmas do and my car didn't start and my sister gave me a lift, so it didn't get taken. The next chance would have been the meeting coming up towards the end of this month, and that's now a Zoom meeting. So this moss is destined to never get to Lynn at the moment. But it's not forgotten. And then my ordinary moss is getting very thin on the ground, and there's a bit of dieback in there as well. I need to go on a field trip to get some more, which I might do next week. And then there's my 4 trays of the Welsh moss there. The Rhinanthras are currently hanging there because when I watered them yesterday, I forgot to put them back up high. And you can see why they're there, can't you? Because those drip an awful lot when they've been watered, and they drip straight into the moss trays, so not all over the floor. So that's how I've got things arranged at the moment. Things could change. So there we go. Look round the shelves. Most of the plants are put there when they first moved in. Some have been moved around since. Now tomorrow's a watering day for pots. Mounts and some things got done yesterday, but lazy day today, as I said. Tomorrow is pot watering day, where I will have a rethink as I go. So each shelf, as you know, I water each plant. They end up on the workbench while they drain into their trays, and we don't throw the trays on the floor anymore. We throw them in a separate container, try and keep the floor as dry as possible, which seems to be working, you know. And basically I found that the mop I've got doesn't pick up the water anywhere near as quickly or efficiently as just a cloth. So just a cloth and wring it out, you know, and then give it a wash afterwards, because otherwise it might get a bit niffy, as cloths do. Yeah, so that's working okay. So that's the plan. Watering day tomorrow. As far as videos are concerned this coming week, so you get an idea, I will more than likely do 2 more of the Project Orchid ones, which will be the Dendrobiums and the Cattleya types. Dendrobiums I think are part 2, Cattleya types are part 3, and then that just leaves part 4, which is others, which is a mixture. And hopefully get that done early the following week. I don't like the same type of video too close together. I like to put some breaks in between. Yes, I mean, you do realise that when Orchid Society meetings are changed to a Zoom meeting, we lose an opportunity, because we have the competition tables, which I usually film. And, you know, that's other people's plants that are brought in, often at their best, and by turning that into a Zoom meeting I lose that opportunity to film. So, you know, that's videos going missing, going walkabout, and if the shows get cancelled that's big videos going walkabout as well. Anyway, hope you've enjoyed this Sunday chat, and you've probably realised by now you've been taking part in a bit of an experiment. The experiment is nothing more than a little bit of advice from various places about format. And normally me standing in front of the camera in the same place for sometimes up to an hour is not deemed a good idea in YouTube terminology. So I thought today we'd have some breaks. We'd move the camera around, try some different angles, give you some different views of the grow room, like now. You haven't seen that view before, yeah? So that's all it is. It's a little bit of extra work for me, but quite honestly, there's a bonus in there, because apart from editing off fronts and backs and doing fades, just to make it look flow, I actually get a break. This is the second cup of coffee, not the first, so it's not stone cold, it's a nice hot one. So it does actually break it up a little bit, which I quite like. And also, as you know, I now allow adverts in the middle of my videos, although they should always be skippable, but I've allowed them to help with the finances, as I've explained many times. Now, YouTube's methodology when it processes a video is getting a lot cleverer than it used to be. The chances are, if it's clever enough, it will put ads in those breaks instead of right in the middle of a sentence like it often does. Anyway, say what you think. It's a new format. I won't be doing it every time, but I quite like the idea of a little introduction instead of starting bam with my music and that part. So you get a little introduction followed by my, you know, start-up bit, and then, you know, some different camera angles, a little bit of added interest, I hope. If you think it's all a waste of time and you like the way it was, by all means say so. And I'll probably take no notice of you and do it the way I want. You know me. Thanks for dropping by. See you next time.